Hey there, guys, it's Metro. How's everybody been, man? I feel like, oh man, it's been a while, a while since I made a video like this, but I'm glad to be back doing it. And today we're going to be soloing some Mythic Zero Darkheart Thicket. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this topic first, and then we're going to talk about the title and, the actual topic that I like to go on about. But yeah, in case you guys can't remember, these videos are basically more for kind of like a podcasty type thing where I can kind of just talk about things that are of interest to me, get some ideas out there over some mildly relevant, background footage. But I was doing it on my DK, and that was simply no challenge whatsoever, and it was taking like way too freaking long. So I decided, let's go for the glass cannon. Not necessarily glass cannon, obviously. Paladin's quite defensive, but compared to a DK, it should be a lot more challenging on the Paladin, and I wouldn't say it proved to be because I'm a lot more geared, but the end goal here is Mythic Plus. Now, I've already talked to and seen some people soloing Mythic Plus 2s and 3s and completing it on time, so it's certainly possible. But the problem I'm having with it is getting people to give me their keys, and not only getting keys, but getting keys that are actually relevant to what I'm trying to do. So that would mean ideally I want to start with a +2. I guess I could try starting with a +3, but I think that's arrogant. If anything, I think I would struggle with a +2, frankly, considering this takes me 43 minutes. I would have to do a lot more prep work, I think. But regardless, I did shorten it down to 30 minutes, so it's all sped up. But anyway, yeah, finding somebody who has an alt, first of all, that's willing to give up their key and then actually has a key that I can use. There are some that are, I guess, factually impossible to solo. There are some that are difficult to solo. But ideally, I would be looking for this on +2 because I'm very comfortable with this dungeon. If you guys don't know, this is like easily my favorite dungeon. I know you probably are sick of fucking seeing Darkheart Thicket on this channel, but I'm sorry, I hate to say it. This is definitely my favorite dungeon in the game right now, and it's just got a lot of really, it feels really exemplary of what dungeons are in Legion. It's got a lot of cool things, bosses that are, representative, and it's also the easiest to solo because the last boss does absolutely fucking nothing, whereas most dungeons have a boss that, is gonna trip you up a little bit. So anyway, I'm probably going to just try to start doing this on my Paladin. I've gotten a lot of gear. Obviously, I'm 901 equipped on Holy, but I'm only like 896 because I'm using trinkets and weapons and stuff that, a weapon that is not maxed out and stuff like that. I think I only have 35 points in my weapon, and I forgot that you can't actually glide here anymore. But anyway, yeah, so let's see, is there anything else I want to talk about? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's too difficult. Don't forget, in 7.2, they're buffing the raids and scaling everything up. So that will make this probably impossible again for a while. But then, of course, once we get to, say, like 890 or 960, I guess, item level. I don't know why I just said 890. But anyway, yeah, like 950 plus item level, then things will probably go back to being pretty easy to do this on. But I wanted to try to get as much of this in as possible. So if anyone knows of any solution to me, I would love to... Basically, the hurdles to overcome, get somebody to give me a +2 Darkheart Thicket is like my ideal situation. And then, have enough time to do it, which is another big problem. Now, if you've been following me and not just the channel, you'll know I've been playing a lot of Classic WoW. It's basically the hype thing to do, and frankly, I got a big gift from YouTube. They decided to feature my live stream on the front page of YouTube Live. A couple over a month ago now, and it has caused the channel and the stream itself to become very popular. So if you see a lot less videos here, unfortunately, it's because I'm just not somebody who has a lot of time to do these things, first of all. And I hate to be rude about it, but making content on Classic has become a priority to me because it is, first of all, much more popular, but also much more profitable. So unfortunately, it's that way, Now, that does not mean I'm playing Legion less. If anything, I'm still playing Legion more than Classic, but it's just every time I play Classic, I stream it. So if you're interested in that at all, you can check that out. But anyway, that'll be the last time we talk about that. So let's get into kind of what I wanted to talk about today, and that was the future. Not necessarily the future is grim kind of thing, but what they actually could do in the future. So the reason we're talking about this is because recently I've had a discussion with patron of the channel, good friend of ours now at this point. You'll see him in the comments, guaranteed. His YouTube name is Kopitar Rules. Big fan of the LA Kings and Anjay Kopitar, of course. So Anyway, he's become a good friend of mine. We had this discussion a couple months ago, or not even months, I guess weeks ago, about, what 8.0 could be. All right, so I'm going to give my ideas, 8.0, what the expansion could be. We're not going to be like, oh, here's a leak, this is the name of the expansion, all that nonsense. There's no point in trying to predict that. You never fucking know what they could name it. You know what I mean? Who would have ever guessed that they would have named this Legion? You know what I mean? It could have literally been anything. You will never guess until they decide to do so. So, but anyway, yeah, back just real quick to the background footage here. As you see, the bosses are basically no threat. They're still just as long as they ever were. When I did this on Heroic and my DK, it was equally no threat. I'm substantially more geared than I was, like, comparatively, based on the item level difference between the dungeons and then how much more I have on this character. But I am not in any way tank geared. I'm in a full pretty much crit haste or crit crit mastery, crit haste gear, so not a very good stat to prioritize. All of my gem slots are crit and all of my enchants are crit and intellect based. So anyway, let's get back to the actual focus of the discussion here now. So 8.0, what I'm anticipating, first of all, there's going to be some key things to think about, all right? These aren't things that I necessarily have a lot that I want to talk about on the topic, but these are things that you should consider when you think about what 8.0 might happen, like what happens in 8.0. First things first, what happens to the artifacts? Now, I'm very scared about this because, first of all, there's always seems to have been like a cycle with World of Warcraft expansions. One is great, and then one is, I feel like, a big letdown compared to that. Now, the only expansion that I feel like wasn't in that pattern was Wrath of the Lich King. I recently uploaded a video on the other channel about Wrath of the Lich King in response to the classic World of Warcraft discussion we constantly have with it. But the way I feel about Wrath of the Lich King is it is vastly, vastly, vastly overrated and is not one of the best expansions Blizzard has launched. But it is certainly not nearly as bad as the other two expansions that are in this cycle that we were discussing. So for the sake of argument, if you guys want to watch that video, you can. But we'll say that Wrath is middle of the pack, okay? But then the cycle starts with Cataclysm. I feel like Cataclysm vastly underdelivers. It had a lot of content that was simply not fleshed out as the best it could be and was a lot cut too. And it does seem like they spent a lot more time on actually revamping leveling than they did actually making the end game content, right? Which, at the time, nobody really took notice of, but if you do that kind of thing now, it's going to be front page news, really. Everybody's going to be complaining about it. At the time, I remember when Jesse and Total Biscuit and everybody were doing beta content, everybody was like so excited to see all the new leveling stuff. But then when Dragon Soul comes out and 5 of the bosses are literally just complete reskins of previous bosses, it's like, okay, that's a big fucking problem here, you know what I mean? So it goes Cataclysm, the second worst expansion of all time, in my opinion, then to Mists of Pandaria, which is, in my opinion, the de facto best expansion that is completed, at least. We'll exclude Legion from that. The amount of stuff that got added on that front is just absolutely absurd. And I also made a video on that on the other channel. So if you want to hear my full thoughts about why Mists of Pandaria is my favorite expansion, but also the best expansion, objectively, you can watch that too. But anyway, we'll agree to whatever, hopefully everyone agrees that MoP was much, much better than Cataclysm. And then WoD came out, and it was much, much worse than MoP. It was a huge letdown. A lot of it was cut content. A lot of the things they said were going to be, good and fleshed out well never happened. And a lot of the systems they added simply did not work as they wanted them to. And then Legion comes out. It's like a fucking another 180, right? Like all the things that sucked about WoD fixed in Legion, added all of these new systems, and now we're looking at an expansion that looks to be even better than Mists of Pandaria, which is saying a lot. So inevitably, I hate to say it, I really hope Blizzard does have their head screwed on this time, but it's happened twice now. I don't see how we're going to avoid 8.0 being another bad expansion. But that does not mean that there's not going to be good things to take out of it. And hopefully it will not be as bad as WoD. I think WoD is definitely the worst expansion ever because of how little was actually in the fucking video game. They had 2 fucking major patches, you know what I mean? And one of them launched with the expansion. So basically 2 raid tiers, all of that nonsense. That I don't see how it could be that bad. I just think, coming off of MoP with all, challenge modes and connected realms and, flex difficulties and all these things, proving grounds, timeless isle style content, all of these excuse me, all of these things that got added in MOP, they can't possibly live up to that in that short of a time. You know, they were just added less than a year ago, and now the new expansion comes out. So, you know, by comparison, it's going to look worse. It doesn't mean it is worse, but what certainly was much, much, much worse than that. But that's going to happen again in 8.0, okay? And the reason I'm on this tangent now is because Artifact, taking away the artifacts is what they claim they're going to do. Now, this is so fucking far away. We have no proof of anything that they're going to be doing. But an early claim is that they will be removing the artifacts from us. The system will not go forward. That's scary, man, because that's a fucking immediate thing that's going to make the expansion seem bad. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what, taking away content always seems bad. It's just a fucking fact at this point. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like there's ever been, unless you're replacing it with something even cooler. So that is something to really worry about in 8.0. Now, don't fucking dwell on it. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people are going to dwell on it, and a lot of people out there are already not enjoying Legion as much as I am, but the point is, the expansion right now, this is the golden age of WoW, okay? Anybody who thinks the past was the golden age of WoW, I encourage you to go try the past, okay? You cannot properly enjoy it as you would enjoy a game in 2017. It's a very clunky thing to do. I love Classic, I love TBC, and they are very fun on their own right. But going back to, you know, private emulation of such is just, it leaves something to be desired. So let's just, you know, live in the moment. Legion, if, you know, you're not expecting this much out of it, then you've gotten more than you expected. If you're not getting what you expected to get out of it, then I urge you to take a second look at it, because a lot of the major complaints with Legion, you know, I made a video on that too on this channel, are really just rooted in like inaccuracy or inexperience or like a lack of commitment to the system, you know? So I don't see any real problems with Legion. You know what I mean? There's things that could change for sure, but they're not detracting from World of Warcraft. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. Warlords of Draenor actually detracted from World of Warcraft. Some of the things that happened in that expansion made the video game worse, okay? And it's not often that this happens, but, you know, the whole garrison concept was a fucking downgrade. Like, literally not any way better than what was previously established, you know? So that's a big deal. And I worry about things like that going forward, because Blizzard can't seem to identify these things when they're creating them. And we can pretty much rest assured that they're already creating 8.0. Based on the way things are going, they may not be very far along, but I'd say it's certain that they already know what they plan on doing with 8.0. And even if it's only in, you know, on the drawing board phase, then I think regardless, it's still being developed, at least mentally, if not physically. So we have to worry about artifacts. Another thing I worry about is the state of dungeons and PvE content going forward. Now, I'm going to talk about a way that they can completely dispel all my problems with this idea, but I have a feeling they're going to go overboard with timewalking, or not with timewalking, with Mythic Plus, and I have a feeling they're going to start making raids timed as well. And I think this is easily one of the worst ideas they could ever have, and if they do decide to do it, then we are in serious trouble. Right now, raiding is the haven from the grind of Mythic Plus. And, you know, as much as I love Mythic Pluses, it certainly is approached by many people as something that is mandatory, a mandatory repetition. That is not the intention, but this is how people play the game. And this is one of the things I was saying with Classic and stuff like this. People just won't take the approach they took years ago. They've already been there. They've already done that. So once you've done these dungeons this way, you cannot go back. And Blizzard does not realize this. They don't seem to think in this dimension. They seem to think that, well, that's not our problem. You want to play the game this way. But if you're going to develop for the community as they have by adding all this casual content like LFR and, you know, world content to replace the problems with WoD and all these things, then you have to recognize the facts here, guys. The people who play the game seriously are going to do so, and they're going to continue to take the most optimal route no matter what it is. If that includes farming 4 sets of heroic raids a fucking week to be able to have an edge, a 5 item level max edge on Mythic Plus progression, or on Mythic progression, or farming Mythic Plus dungeons for fucking 20 hours a day. You know what I mean? Like, that's an exaggeration, obviously, but you know, there's people out there who literally do nothing but Mythic Plus all fucking day while they were waiting for Nighthold to open, so they could have all 3 of their weapons with 45 or 54 points. You know, these are big problems that aren't problematic with the video game game's design, but are problematic with human beings. And Blizzard is comprised of human beings, so you have to think about these things regardless. And I don't think we're going to get a solid solution to it. No matter what they do, there will always be this level of competitiveness that will outshine the pleasures the game has to offer. So regardless, I think that they will continue to push this model forward, and it will continue to harm the competitive aspect. Now, whether or not it harms me, I can't say. I don't know what a timed raid or like a raid with an infinite difficulty curve would mean. It would mean to me that the raid could be out forever, just like 5-mans could be out forever. But that's not how the game has ever worked. So I worry that if you do this, you trivialize the systems that you've created. And I think it's a slippery slope. I hate to use that terminology, but I think if you make, say, Emerald Nightmare Mythic Plus when, Nighthold is out, then it encourages people to go back and do Emerald Nightmare alongside Trial of Valor and Nighthold. And that's a scary thing because if you look back to when that actually was the way forward with Classic, that's one of the biggest issues with Classic. The fact that Naxxramas, everybody claims, Naxxramas was this unapproachable difficulty and it was so impossible. It was the pinnacle of challenge the game has ever presented. Unfortunately, you're wrong about that. The actual challenge was getting fucking geared for it, because in order to be able to raid Naxx, in order to be able to say you were ready for Naxx, you had to have rated MC, BWL, and ZG and the AQs for fucking months beforehand, like literally 2+ years of progression just to be able to be ready for Naxx, because of how poor gear dropped, like how a lot of the gear was trash and how seldom good pieces would drop in those raids. And that was a big fucking problem, and you're going to go back to that if you do a timed raid. Now, of course, we have absolutely no evidence that this is going to happen, but it is something I can easily see them doing. Now, the best thing that I can see them also considering, and hope that they are considering here, is using the technology for good. I use that terminology a bit selfishly, but the idea that I just presented there, I think, is a very bad idea for progression of the video game, but some people may enjoy it, so maybe that is being selfish of me to say it would not be a cool idea. But regardless, what I think they should do is the Legion tech moving forward is to repurpose it for the entire video game. So I'm now going to lay out to you what I believe the ideal 8.0 situation is. A very rough draft, of course, because as ideas come out, we'll remodel this to make that even more applicable. But as of right now, I'm just approaching this like we know zero about the expansion, and we effectively do. I mean, we can't even guarantee when it would, it may not even come out for years. So, but here's what I think, and like I said, I discussed this with Cop. And I think, a lot of other players have heard my opinions on this on the live streaming, and they agree with it. 8.0 should contain no new levels. We will stay at 110. We will relish our victory of, Argus, when we went to Argus and killed, whatever we kill there. I don't even know, but we're going to relish that. But there will be new threats, of course, to overcome, and these new threats will be systematic and, they'll be expansive throughout the entire world, just like Cataclysm, okay? So if you remember in Cataclysm when Deathwing came out, we had just killed the Lich King, which was easily one of the biggest accomplishments our character could have ever achieved. But then Deathwing decides, well, since we were spending all that time in Northrend, guess what you fucking forgot? You forgot all about me and forgot about, the dangers that are presented on the, Azeroth proper. And this is the same thing. We're going to go to fucking Argus, and we're going to leave Azeroth behind, and Azeroth is going to get fucking dominated by something. And I don't know what people think, maybe old gods. I don't know anything about that kind of shit. I'm not a lore fan, to be fair, so I'll leave that speculation up to you if you want to leave a comment on what you think the existential threat that we may face after leaving Azeroth to effectively defenseless, because all of our heroes are going to fucking go to Argus alongside Illidan, Khadgar, Lady Liadrin, all of our faction leaders, everybody will go. I guarantee you this. This is going to be a world conquest level army that we are going to have to bring in order to take on a Titan effectively and a Legion effectively. And by the way, Legion started. I haven't watched it. I heard it was quite good, but I'm excited. That actor is good, but regardless, I don't know why the fuck I just brought that up. Anyway, Yes, so I think the best way forward is to not, like to make it immediate. So we immediately come back and all of this shit happens. There's no reason to add new zones. There's no place to add new zones in the old world. I'm waiting on potions and CDs here, by the way. But anyway, there's no places to add to new games. So what do you fucking do? You make the entire video game scale up to you again for the first time ever, basically. Now, the reason I think this is the best idea for the video game is because after playing classic and old expansions and trying to approach the game from a mindset of what is actually wrong with it, why is, despite its 13 years, it still plateaus and peaks and valleys and all these different things, what people come back for, what people leave for. I think one of the biggest problems in World of Warcraft, not in Legion, in the video game as a standpoint, is that the world is irrelevant. It's called World of Warcraft, but almost nothing in Azeroth has any fucking relevance whatsoever. They try to bring that back with the order halls and the class quests and the all these different things taking you all over the zone, but I can't help but feel that when I fly up, to Booty Bay to get some item for my Paladin quest or whatever it was, that when I fly by these NPCs that are level 28, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't give a fuck about these things. So, how do you fix this? Guess what? We have World Quest, and we already have the scaling zone tech that is implemented in Legion. Let's fucking make it happen. Put this everywhere, every fucking place on the planet. We're talking about Hellfire Peninsula, Howling Ford, everywhere. Fucking Booty Bay, every zone in the goddamn game. Make it scale. And myself and Cop had discussed this frequently. His opinion on the topic was the best way to approach it was to make a minimum level for the zone still. So you can't go to Jade Forest at level 1. But after, you end the zone, you get to the high end of the zone, it goes up and up and up and up. So if for some reason there was enough quests in the Barrens, you could do Barrens 1 to 60, something like that, And I think this would easily be one of the best additions to the game because right now leveling is absolutely a fucking disaster. It's a complete fucking joke. I will not hold my tongue on the topic. It is, as much as I love Legion, thankfully it does not require me to level because if I ever had to, it is so disjointed. Timelines are fucked up. There is absolutely no challenge to it, and you could fucking buy your way out of it. That is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I've talked about it on this channel at length. I think anybody who would consider buying a level 100 for $60 is exemplary of the problem that the game is absolutely terrible in terms of leveling. So if you're ever going to get the game back to its former glory, we need to spend some time on the old world. I'm not talking about making fucking legacy servers. I'm talking about making the game, actually matter again. The world actually have a place in it. Leveling actually care about it again. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to add a mythic leveling process. This is more far-fetched than the other topic. I think that one's way more likely. But regardless, a mythic leveling situation, it brings you to this point here where you could easily say that, leveling has no challenge. Just like people say dungeons have no challenge, then they add mythic plus dungeons. Well, guess what? Anybody who says dungeons are easy in Legion is a fucking moron. There's no way, you're just stupid. You haven't fucking played the game. You can go do a plus 25, you know what I mean? I can't get higher than a 15. I've never completed a 15 on time, and I'm fucking 901, you know what I'm saying? So tell me how dungeons are easy. It's just not. It's factually false now. And if you do the same thing with leveling, so here's what I'm saying, make all the whole game scale, make leveling actually worth the time again. And then add an optional difficulty, maybe a separate realm or something that you could enable and turn off at will. So people who want to level easily, right, because that's the big thing. They've made leveling easier, so they think more people will do it. But in reality, it just gets really fucking stupid and boring and nobody does it anyway. And they just pay for 60s or pay $60 for hundreds. So yeah, that's a big deal. Make it matter, again, with the world quests and scaling the zones up, So when you go to Jade Forest at 90, is it 90? No. 85, then it can scale all the way up to 90. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. Or you can do the Burning Crusade from 60 to 90 instead, something like that. And it makes the zones, because right now when you go there with heirlooms and all the other stuff that's in the game and how much they've nerfed experience, you almost don't even get to finish the zones in a lot of cases, Even if you go there completely naked, you still end up getting to the end and it's like there's no point in staying here because these quests are fucking green now or gray or even, some of them. So it's a big deal. And if they do that, if they add the questing and, world quest stuff like this, like we saw in the previous video that I made on this channel, they already have world quests in Silithus for that holiday. So it shows that it can work. And the zone was scaled up to my level, and there was level 60s there as well. Level 70s, 80s, 90s there. They were leveling there. It was just like the invasions. It worked exactly like that from pre-Legion. And there's no fucking reason that they can't make this happen. They just need to spend the time on it. And like I said at the beginning of this little topic, it's going to make the game seem shitty again because they're going to spend all the time on this. But I think it needs to fucking happen. I'm going to say this now, and I'm going to disagree with myself in the future when 8.0 comes out and it's a letdown compared to Legion. But I'm saying this now as a responsible, future-minded individual. Hopefully I will remember this and agree with myself if it does happen. But I think the future is not going to include leveling. We don't need to go to 120. We don't need any new zones. What we need to do is take a moment to make Azeroth great again, as much as I fucking hate saying that. But anyway, yeah, I think that's the way to do it. And then you can make this mythic leveling. So my proposal for this mythic leveling is, like I said, whatever a functional difficulty that can be switched out of, opted out of if you really don't want to do it. But make it so, every month there's a leaderboard, just like the challenge mode system, just like the Mythic Plus system. Encourage community interaction, all that stuff like that, and make it so there's actual affixes or difficulty to it, like not like just tune everything up. And this is what I can see. So you say like, these mobs are, they have fucking, I don't know, necrotic and some, just whatever mechanics, just like in Mythic Plus dungeons. And then every maybe month or two, they rotate, whatever you think is enough time for people to level 1 to 60 or 1 to 100, whatever you want to do, stuff like that. And then it rotates, and the characters don't get deleted like they would in like Diablo seasons, but they're on a different, then it changes, something like that. Just like in Mythic Plus dungeons, our characters don't get deleted, but we now have a different challenge to face. And it makes these dungeons feel renewable, like to the sense that they literally are never not a challenge. We do Court of Stars differently every single fucking week because of the affixes, stuff like that. So I think you can do that with leveling, and you can give the mobs real mechanics. Now, I know this probably won't happen, but what I'd like to see is a Dark Souls style combat where, these mobs cannot deal damage to me unless I unless I let them. They basically don't do any, let them melee attack, whatever, but they all have a big mechanic that if I can avoid it, I could take no damage from it. And if I don't avoid it, I will nearly die. And it'll make the world feel relevant again. It'll make the world feel dangerous again. And then it will get people leveling again. And on top of this, the Mythic Plus system can be carried over to it as well, like the actual like keystone, not necessarily keystones, but you could change it. So say Mythic Plus 1 leveling is the mobs are 1 level higher on top of these affixes, right? Like the affixes are there weekly. No matter what, and the challenge is there. But then if you want to take it even further, right, to get this leaderboard active, you make Mythic Plus leveling. Level 1 is 1 level higher. Level 5 is the mobs are 5 levels higher than they normally are. Level 10 is they are 10 levels higher than they normally are. And no matter how well equipped you are, at some point this becomes a very, very, very challenging, you know what I mean? But it's still like properly set up. Like if you went to fucking Wrath of the Lich King content at level 70, you would struggle to kill things. But there's no reason to be there because you can't do the quests anyway. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be, I misspoke. I meant to say, if you go to Wrath, which is meant to be done at 70, if you go there at 60 is what I meant to say. But regardless, you can't go there at 60. You can't physically get there. So I think this is the way forward. If you want to make leveling matter again, which I think everybody should want, and you want to make the world feel dangerous and relevant again, then the best way to do this is add 110 content to every zone. Okay, hear me out on this now as well. Mythic plus old dungeons, all right? Time walking, like, I guess more time walking old dungeons, not necessarily Mythic plus, but time walking old raids so we can do BWL, like a LFR, a BWL. It gives like blues, just like, time walking dungeons do now. They're kind of just for fun. They're not necessarily, always relevant, but we have the tech in the game, guys, and not using it just seems like such a sham to me. Like, what are we fucking waiting for? So anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the matter. I could go on this topic for another hour, honestly, but I want to try to keep this to 30. So I definitely think, making leveling and the world feel like scaling again, so there's level 110s in the same zone as level 30s, but they're all, scaled up and all this, like it would be. and maybe even phase it a little bit from quests and stuff like that, so there's not griefing or camping, whatever. But it's something that definitely is better about Classic. There's few things that I think are objectively better about Classic compared to Legion, and that's one of them. The world is fucking relevant, and you see, when you're out there in it, there's a lot of fucking people doing things. So I think in order to make the game the best it can be, we need to get back to that. And I really think 8.0, hopefully they will agree with all of that. So anyway, thanks for watching. I know it's been a while since the videos come out. I'll try to get more out, but I appreciate the people who have stuck by, and we'll see you guys in the next one.